Welcome to another awesome episode of Off the Beaten Path, and today we're at the beer stop in West Hazelton. We're going to be doing the whole show from here, and we're going to be sampling beers. Yes, this is probably going to be my favorite episode. We've got a whole slew of Pennsylvania beers to sample. But before we do that, we're going to check out the Wings of Freedom. World War II planes came into the area a couple weeks ago. Check it out. Aircraft that flew during World War II made a stop in Hazelton as part of the Wings of Freedom tour that the Collings Foundation does every year. Now, we have briefly featured the Wings of Freedom tour on Off the Beaten Path before, but we could not pass up a chance to step back in time and talk with one of the pilots.
We have with us the B-17 Flying Fortress and the P-51 Mustang. And we're an educational foundation, and it is our goal to keep the history alive of World War II. And we're considered a living history group because everything we have flies, and everything we have we give rides in or flight training in the case of the Mustang. And our goal is just to make sure people don't forget World War II and the sacrifices that those guys, men and women, gave during that war. It's a different skill set, it's a different mindset than airplanes today. I mean, today is push-button, autopilot, glass panels. These are steam gauges, we call them, hands-on, rudder, stick and rudder skills. They're built for 19, 20-year-old kids, so they're not really that difficult to fly, but by today's standards, a lot of guys can't do it because it's so hands-on. But it's a different skill set. It's to fly the airplanes is an honor. I mean, they're the last of their kind, but just being able to experience that is pretty special.
Also on hand was a group of World War II reenactors who came for the event. They dedicate many hours of their time to educate and showcase uniforms, weapons, and refurbished vehicles from that era.
Today is what we would call a living history event, and it is first and foremost to commemorate the veterans that have served, very simply. Our uncle kind of set us up about 10 years ago. He served, was part of the 173rd in Vietnam, was a chaplain, and he asked if we'd be interested in maybe pulling a little group together. We did, kind of got out of hand. We got more vehicles than we know what to do with right now. So we've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years with veterans, helping them, getting them around where they need to go, but primarily listening to their stories, talking to them, seeing what we can do to help them on a daily basis, but also to try and sort of gather up the stories that they've collected themselves over their time spent in the military. And those are the things that we actually treasure the most, and those are the kinds of things we try to preserve. Bringing these things out triggers a lot of those memories for those guys. We've had veterans whose family, whose children, grandchildren have come out to events and wouldn't talk about their experiences until they came out and saw us dressed like this, these vehicles. When we hear the stories, it's not, it's not the glamorous part of their stories that, they're good things and bad things about everyone's experiences, and theirs, it comes to life when we understand just the small mundane things that happened on a daily basis. We'll just ask them, what was it like sleeping under a tank? They carried tent shelters. Every guy got a half a tent shelter, and you were to bunk with another guy because he had another half of that shelter, so you could put up a little pup tent. Well, we find out that after a lot of these guys landed in Normandy, they didn't bother putting up pup tents. They just slept under vehicles. They slept in ditches. They slept on whatever they could. They threw the pup tents down the ground to keep dry, and then they slept right on top of it. So, that's stuff you wouldn't pick that up anywhere else. You're not going to pick it up in a book. You're not going to see that in a movie. And I'll tell you how they shaved in the morning, if they shaved, if they smelled bad. They'll tell you those kinds of things. So, that's what's kind of fun, actually.
The reenactors we talked to that day were more than happy to showcase their vehicles.
This is a WC-63, Weapons Carrier 63, 6 wheels. Basically, they're all the same powertrains, a 6-cylinder Dodge, standard shift transmission. There's a Harley Davidson, I believe there's a motorcycle over there. We've got a Scout car, that's a little bit bigger version of this. Just a little ensemble of equipment from World War II. Stuff 70 years old plus.
This is a 1944 Willys MB. They made the Jeeps from 1940 until 1945. And the initial Jeeps that were first made really were sent over on Lend-Lease to Russia, believe it or not. And the British had a bunch of Jeeps that we sent over to them. But that's what they were used for, transport people going in and out of non-combative areas. But it proved such a durable vehicle that they did using them in combat.
They believe education is the key to make sure the greatest generation is not forgotten.
World War II was the greatest conflict in human history. And unfortunately, even 70 years on, it's being forgotten. And we have what we have now because of what was sacrificed during that war. It's imperative that younger generations know why we have what we have and appreciate it, because freedom is not free.
Coming up next on Off the Beaten Path, sampling a great Pennsylvania beer.